often period costuming can separate the audience from the themes of the play even, because it means that you look at beautiful pictures rather than think about the content. Let's take the example of a Shakespearean play. If you set it in the period that it was written, so Elizabethan garments, and the men are running around in bloomers and hose, and the women have ruffs and big farthingales, they're beautiful, but they don't make you think of the type of person. And you have to work very hard to break through that separation. So if you think of Pop-Up Globe now, what they're doing is they walk forward to the audience and they directly engage the audience the entire time. They'll come down onto their groundling floor and talk directly to them, and they use very strong New Zealand accents to try and break that wall. I like to take a period costume and choose certain things that set the period. For example, big sleeves or a corset or amazing boots, which we're thinking about using in Nell Gwyn, or maybe long hair for the men. Take those pieces, but then put them into a contemporary context. So the guys may actually wear suits, but they'll have boots and long hair that set it back into another period. So I think that's an interesting process for the audience too, because they have trigger ideas that set it maybe into restoration, but they also know that this person's status is very high or somebody's status is very low because they're wearing a baseball cap and a pair of sneakers as well.
So we've kept the look and feel of the play still period piece really, but we've used modern fabrics. Mozart, I looked at because he's angelic. He was an angel, so I did him in white and gold, and I also based him on Elvis in Vegas. So he's going to have the sun god, French symbol, from Versailles. I'm going to embroider that on the back of the jacket, on the tails, and then it will be studded with gold and gilt. And as he progresses through the play, it gets aged and sequins sort of fall off, and he loses a shoe, that kind of thing. So it goes from very glamorous and very rock star to a very withered sort of state, very sad state actually, which is what happened to him in real life. Yeah. And his wife, Constance, played by Morgana O'Reilly, is a very gregarious, very over-the-top, luscious, gorgeous, curvy woman who is, in Salieri's mind, a bit of a tart, a bit of a brash sort of character. But I found the fabric for her, I sourced first, and it's this beautiful lemon yellow with hydrangeas in it, so sort of a modern furniture sort of fabric that I've made into sort of clothing. So a little bit of Sound of Music creeping in there.
When you're recreating period costumes, or when you are creating period costumes, you still have to keep in mind the characters of all the people in the play. So they can't just be beautiful reproductions of a garment that you've seen in the V&A. They have to tell the audience about the character constantly, and in fact, as far as I'm concerned, that's more important than historical accuracy. So I would push something into a more modern feel if I felt it served the character. Yes. Twelfth Night was great fun to work on. It was set on a beach ultimately, and so there was absolutely nothing to inform the audience about the period or the time, or even in fact whether it was a Shakespearean play. So I also could play with that beach theme. I think the costumes for that were some of the most beautiful that I've done, just visually beautiful. It was set in the 1930s, and so it was palazzo pants. The women felt very elegant and beautiful, and the cross-dressing of our characters in disguise really worked in that 30s time period because they were high-waisted, pleated pants and quite full. So it really worked very well for the play itself. Yeah. In the design process, again, we do discuss whether it's the set or the costumes that will set the time period. And very often, partly because of budgetary reasons, but also because of fashion, it's the costume that sets the period. And so I do have to be aware of that. When I modernise a costume, I am aware that I'm informing the period as well. So it's quite a delicate balance between the two. I don't want to produce absolute period costume. I have done that in the past. I probably do that sort of thing when it's a New Zealand play and it's historically based. Then I'll do very almost reproductions of clothing for that, because I think it's really important that we inform our history, and that's a whole different area. But modern pieces, for example, Mel Gwyn, we do want to engage the audience. It's a comedy, it's light, it's fun, and we want to go on a journey together with the audience. So in the past, I possibly have found it more possible to design in period than I would now. Now the budgets are lower, and therefore, and costs are higher, and because the fashion industry has virtually moved from New Zealand to China, we don't have the fabric supplies that we used to have. So there's a whole lot of reasons that make designing with a more modern flavour almost the only way to go. It's very interesting, that shift.